Well, thank you very much for joining me here on my first ever this Creative Life interview thing that I decided to do.
Very much for the
Oh, thank you. I mean, the thing that this is going to be about is just interviewing creative people from all walks of creative life, so authors, illustrators, artists, and seeing what you're up to at the moment and what your day-to-day life is and kind of what advice you have for people who are wanting to do what it is that you do.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so would you like to tell everyone about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Lora O'Brien, and I am a full-time freelance writer and teacher. And I suppose I've kind of had to come up with some kind of tagline for myself because there's a lot that I cover. So I think Guide to Ireland is my newest kind of catch-all, you know. Because I worked professionally as a tour guide for many years around ancient sites in Ireland, so I know a lot of the archaeology and the history and all that as well. But I'm also primarily working on a spiritual level, so connecting people to Ireland. So the vast majority of my work is about that, is about guiding, whether that be writing, teaching, or physically guiding them around the site. So.
Oh, wonderful. How did you decide to do that? Was there a point where you were doing something else where you decided, actually, this is more the path I should be taking?
Well, I suppose I've only recently kind of committed to the spiritual side of things full time, but I've been a writer my whole life, I suppose. I had children quite young, so I was a stay-at-home mom from the age of about 21. So I had been working various just retail jobs. I had been in art college, and that was my qualification. There wasn't a lot of jobs that actually came from that. So I was a stay-at-home mom, and I started writing for like local newspapers and that. So I actually jumped into the professional side of writing pretty much from the start. I kind of have always figured like that, you know, the reason that I was doing it was because people were telling me that I was good at it, so I might as well get paid for it. So that's pretty much been my attitude from the start. And I remember the first time I queried the local newspaper, the Roscommon Herald, and I pitched them a story, a kind of a series of what it's like to move from Dublin into the back arse to nowhere in County Roscommon in Ireland. Can I curse on this? I probably shouldn't curse on this. I curse a lot. Apologies for offended sensibilities. Yeah, so I just pitched it as a professional. It was my first ever writing gig, but I pitched it as a professional, and she paid me, I think, €100 for 10 columns of like 500 words each, and so it was only like a tenner a column, but I was absolutely delighted with myself. I was over the moon. And I've just, since then, I kind of never felt any need to. I do write for free sometimes, but generally it's been paid writing the whole time. So I moved from there into teaching. I've been studying paganism and all sorts of Irish mythology and history and heritage for a long time. So I got involved with a few organisations. I was volunteering as a moderator on websites and stuff like that in England. And they started asking me to teach classes. So I ended up standing in front of audiences and, at events in London, kind of, how am I doing here? But, just winging it. And people seemed to like what I was doing. So, that was 15 years ago now. And I guess I've just been doing it ever since, to varying degrees. The guiding side of it, I started to guide people around the sacred sites. I lived beside a place called Rathcroghan in County Roscommon, which is the royal site of Connacht, the western province of Ireland, and home of Queen Maeve and the Morrigan and lots of other fun stuff. So I started working part-time as a tour guide there. And the local heritage centre needed a manager, and the board approached me and asked me would I be their manager with no business experience at all. And they just wanted talk about jumping in the deep end, you know, this was
Yeah.
a community business project, and I literally had no business experience, but they obviously saw something in me. I was pretty savvy and I learned fast. So I think the main reason that they hired me was for my passion for the sites, though. You know, they wanted somebody who really cared about the place. And spiritually, I was working as a guardian there. I feel like not paid, obviously, but that was my kind of my role, my priesthood role there. So while that wasn't obviously a part of their decision-making process in the local community board, it certainly fit with, I think, what the universe was telling me that I should have been doing. So I managed those sites for about 8 years, and finished that about 2 years ago because I wanted to go. I had written a book in 2004, and the first book was published, and I hadn't actually written any major projects or works or anything since because the job had just taken over my entire life and existence. So yeah, I started wanting to write more. So I started doing more articles, and I actually started working with local business women, women in business groups, to help with marketing and all of that because I was doing copywriting as well, kind of on the side. That's, you know, just writing for business copy.
Yeah.
And I was picking up a few articles for, you know, just business journalism. So I'd been published in like our national press and that here at that point. So I was really seeing that there was an opportunity there to go full time as a freelancer, which was very, very scary, very scary. But I tend to kind of push myself into those deep and scary things. So I decided to go full time, and that was 2 years ago. And things have been going really well since then. So that's good.
Oh, fantastic.
My potted history.
So is this something that you're now going to do from now on? Just concentrate on writing your articles and your books. You're also running a course now.
Yeah. Well, the last year or so, I was kind of running two businesses, to be honest. I had my kind of paying the bills journalism, the business journalism and the copywriting and, you know, hustling for clients and all of that. So that was, you know, that's a whole business entity in itself. And that was actually doing really well. I'd query the odd kind of, you know, spiritual or Irish history or heritage, wherever I could kind of get a market for that, I would query that as part of that. But that was kind of the bread and butter work that I was doing. And that's a whole, you know, it's a whole job in itself. For every article you get, you have to be querying kind of 10 before that, you know, and pitching and building relationships and working with editors and clients and, you know, just contact management systems and all the kind of business side that goes with that, you know, I had actually gotten very good at, especially with helping other women to kind of set stuff up. And, you know, so there was no problem doing that, but it's just where all of my energy would go. And then anything that was kind of left over was going into spiritual books, which I saw as a whole kind of other business. So like the Lora O'Brien kind of author brand, if you like, you know. And I just saw that as kind of long-term stuff that wasn't really going to ever pay the bills. And, you know, that's my personal gig, and that's, you know, that's the kind of, but that's really my heart work, if that makes sense. And and I always had like this kind of little secret desire to, you know, maybe someday I'll make a living from that, you know, because you have to put food on the table. So I kind of feel that the universe has kind of been pushing me since I left the centre and left working that job full time. Literally all of a sudden, overnight, I started getting invites to teach around the world. So I was invited to Italy first to a Druid conference. There was a couple of other gigs in Italy from that, where, you know, I've actually built up quite a quite a good following, and my Italian community is really amazing. And so I've been over there a few times, and then I was invited to a big conference. I mean, you know, from this little island, we don't have any clue of the American population, really. I mean, you guys in Britain maybe a bit more so, but certainly me with my little rural Irish brain, like I'd no concept of how big the American conferences and festivals were, you know. Like theoretically I knew, but the sheer size and scope of like thousands of people in one place. So I was invited to an event called PantheaCon in California, in San Jose, and it would have, you know, it was my first time in America. Actually never really even kind of wanted to go to America. I don't like traveling, believe it or not. I am very much a homebody, and I'm very connected to Ireland. And if I stayed here, lived and died here for the rest of my life, that would just be, it'll be me happy, you know. But the goddess that I work for, I think, had other plans for me, because these invites were coming thick and fast. So I started to say yes and started to travel a bit more. So that's that side of things has built up, and I got a book contract for my third book with a big American pagan publisher, Llewellyn. So I've written a book for them, and it's currently being edited and rewritten, you know, in that kind of process.
Congratulations!
Thank you. It's gonna be quite big. Like, it's the biggest pagan publisher in America, so in the world, you know. So I'm really pleased to get that work underway. But I think it will really kind of open doors from a marketing perspective, obviously, to the work that I'm doing. So that's exciting. But I also, you know, the idea's been creeping up on me, and, you know, I'm one of these people that I'll get these mad ideas all the time, but, you know, I'll kind of let them sit for a while and see, you know, which ones kind of fade away and which are the ones that just don't go away, you know, and this kind of tap, tap, tap on your shoulder of, you know, hi, it's here, this is still a good idea, you know, you need to actually do some work in this, and you know, have a little look at it and see if it's feasible and how it could work, you know, and then my brain kicked in with you know what I'm talking about. And then my brain kicked in with the problem solving, you know, and all of these kind of ways start presenting themselves, you know, things that can happen. So that's been happening for about a year, with kind of making the writing and the teaching from a spiritual perspective as my primary business, you know. So trying to kind of figure ways to pay the bills with that, because like I've been doing that for 21 years now at this point. So I reckon I've, you know, put in my apprenticeship, and and the feedback that I'm getting is yeah, well, that's it. But yeah, like the feedback I'm getting is that, especially from America, you know, a lot of Americans are really looking for that Irish connection, obviously, and not just Americans, obviously, but primarily that's what I'm seeing in the American market. And just there hasn't been anything kind of genuine or authentic available for them, and you know, we have that here. And I think some of that is because a lot of Irish people don't kind of put themselves forward. We have a lot of talent here, and we have a lot of skill and a lot of experience, and you know, people don't like to kind of market themselves, and that's particularly true, I think, for writers and artists, and probably something you're going to hear a lot over the course of these interviews, you know. And I don't like the business side of things, and I don't like marketing, and you know, you're already dealing with your own imposter syndrome, so you're kind of you're trying to figure ways to sell yourself, and it's like, I don't want to.
But why would anyone hire you?
Exactly. So we all need to get over that shit. We really do.
Yeah, that feeling of I'm just not good enough yet. I'll leave it another little while, and then maybe I'll be good enough.
Yeah. So 20 years later, I'm finally feeling that maybe I'm good enough. You know. So yeah, there has been a really good feedback to it. So again, working with the spiritual, there is very much, for me, there has to be a balance in that. So like when I'm doing the online classes and courses and things, I always make, say for example, I always make scholarship places available, you know, or if somebody approaches me and says, look, you know, I really want or I need to do this work and I can't do it, you know, but like people will often kind of send me emails and say, when's the next time you're doing this because I can't afford this at the moment, and you know, and we'll kind of do a bit of back and forth, and you know, there's always people who need this work, but just, you know, the finances are a barrier to them, and I'm very aware of kind of, you know, classism or ableism or, you know, any of the isms that so many reasons that, you know, people just might not be able to pay for the work that I'm putting out there at the moment, which is fine. So, you know, so I keep a very clear balance myself with that. But it's also the reason that I started the Patreon, because, you know, there's a whole range of options on my Patreon for the same kind of rewards that I'm giving out, you know, so from kind of, you know, $1 or $3 or $5 right up to kind of, you know, if you want personal time every month, you could pay $100 and get all the other stuff as well, and the classes and, you know, everything as well. So like there's a whole range of options, and actually most people are signing up for like the $20 or the $50 option. So that's been really good. The Patreon's only been up like less than 2 weeks now, I think. And it's, you know, I've already reached my second goal. So people, again,
wow. It's been going very well for you then.
It's pretty amazing. You know, and like, again, this was part of me kind of figure out like, well, if people actually want what I'm teaching, you know, then I should be supported in that, because, you know, it is spiritual stuff, and it's hard to put a price on it, and it's hard to, you know, it's hard to kind of figure out, like I'm obviously very wary of being one of those kind of, you know, guru types who is just, you know, creaming off everybody and living the high life and all that. Like that's never going to be me, you know. And I think even being Irish, like I don't think that would be. I'm not saying that there aren't any Irish people who do that, because I'm sure there are, but it's not our culture, you know, because we're a nation of begrudgers. We really are. And we will always keep each other real, you know.
Yeah.
Dragon would just be too much to bear, you know, the kind of everybody taking the piss out of you, like if you got above your station, you know. So we're very good at keeping it real for each other, you know, if one of us gets notions.
Is that something hard to come to terms with, that you should be paid for your work? Like for your spiritual work that you're putting all this effort into?
Yeah, and I think particularly for the teaching, you know, and that's like for writing as well, writing articles or writing books, that's fine. It's, you know, there's a clearer kind of delineation of what's paid work and what's not. But for teaching, for online teaching or for in-person workshops and that, you know, like I'm teaching skills and techniques. I'm not offering initiation. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that anybody's going to be made a priest or a priestess of a particular lineage or tradition. You know, I'm not, definitely wouldn't charge for that work. And I have this very kind of clear delineation for myself between what's priestess work and what's guide work or teacher work, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. So like I mean, for example, I've studied psychology as well, and you know, there's a huge amount of that influences my spirituality, but it also then puts me in a position where if I'm also a legal reverend with the Pagan Life Rights organization, which is fairly new, but that's a project that I was involved in from the get-go. There was 12 of us that got together to create this kind of legal entity so that people could get ordained as pagan reverends in Ireland. So I'm very proud to be part of that. Obviously never get paid for any of that kind of stuff. I also run a festival every year called Féile Dréachta, a festival. Myself and Barbara Lee have been running it since 2003. Again, totally non-profit. We don't get paid for that at all. And we're kind of lucky if we get some of our expenses back every year, you know. We try and keep tabs on petrol and phone calls and, you know, postage and stuff, but it doesn't always work out. But it's grand. You know, so like there's a lot of community work that I do that I would class as my priestess work. I would often get a phone call well, not often, thankfully, but I have gotten phone calls at like 3 o'clock in the morning of kind of people in crisis, or you know, I've been there with people who, like, their birthing partner has let them down, or you know, even just people whose, you know, friends or family are dying and they just need somebody to talk to. You know, that's actually work that I've done. Seem to attract a lot of the death things. You know, I don't really. I got ordained as a reverend, and all of my fellow reverends are, you know, doing a lot of marriages and stuff, and I seem to be in, like, you know, death counselling and funeral rites and all of that. So I mean, I am I do belong to the goddess Morrigan. I work for her, so that's kind of probably not a surprise to anybody. But yeah, it's just like I said. I think the universe puts the priestess work in front of me that I need to be doing, and I trust in that, and I have faith in that. And you know, to a certain extent, I'm very aware of that, and I keep an eye out for stuff like that. And none of that is stuff that I would ever charge for, you know.
Yeah. Do you think that this idea of service is actually baked into your creativity as well? Is your creativity an expression of your desire to serve?
Very much so. And that's another reason why I want to. That was the big reason, actually, why I wanted to see, could I, you know, I mean, anybody can write a business tech article, or, you know, interview a company over in Silicon Valley and, you know, make them look good. Like, you know, there's a lot of journalists doing that.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a pretty unique position with the range of skills and the experience that I've had, to give something important to the communities that I work with and for. So it kind of, I feel that there has been an onus on me to, you know, to see if I can find ways to make that, you know, my primary kind of energy focus, to be of service in that way. You know, and I don't think that that's kind of how I come to terms with it, because I think that there's a fair exchange there, in that, you know, if I'm given my primary energy and my primary focus to this kind of work and this service, then, you know, yeah, I should be able to, you know, make sure that my son has new runners when he needs them, and, you know,
yeah, the electricity stays on and
stuff like that. So yeah, I think the service is such a huge part of the priestess work. It can't help, I can't help but it filter into everything that I do, you know. And it also makes the work that I do, I think, you know, and I use the term authentic connection because that's what it is. And, you know, that's the feedback that I get, that this is real, and this is something that people aren't getting in other places or in other ways. But because I've had to figure it all out for the last 20 years, nobody's kind of been there to teach me. The very least I can do is put up these signposts for people so they don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. So, you know, you can make a whole fresh set of mistakes all yourself, but you don't have to make the same ones. So yeah, that really does influence my creativity, my writing, you know, just where my brain is going, where my I feel, especially with the things that I teach, I feel very intuitionally led to that, because, like I said, I've got a huge range of experience and knowledge that I'm kind of itching to share with everybody all the time, you know. And if you ever do a class with me, you'll see I have the Irish storytelling thing of going off on tangents, and, you know, eventually getting back to the point. But, like, there's just so much that I want to share with people, whether that's in writing or teaching. And I have to be very clear, like, on what's my ego, you know, what am I really good at, what will make me look good to teach or to write on, and kind of put that aside and say, right, well, you know, universe, kind of, you know, guiding spirits, entities, or just the people that I'm dealing with, you know. And I'll often kind of put a post up on Facebook or something and just say, you know, what would you like me to write about, or what would you like me to teach about, or anything. And I really appreciate that feedback, because, you know, it's no good me kind of standing up in an echo chamber and teaching what makes me feel good, you know, or writing about that. So yeah, service, huge part of the creativity.
Is there any kind of special routine that you implement to help you get through these creative parts of your life? Like, do you get up and meditate and then go for a run and then start writing? Or do you just let it come as it comes?
Yeah, no, I wish I went for a run every day. No, I have actually just moved to a place that has the beach, which is great. I've never been a sea person, though. I've always been connected to the rivers in Ireland, especially the River Shannon. So I've kind of had a bit of an uneasy relationship with the sea. Not uneasy, just not interested. I was never interested in the sea. So part of my ritual at the moment is to, like, when I moved here in March, and it's down in the south of Ireland, the southeast corner in Waterford, and it's a totally different landscape, totally different energies. I don't know any of the sites around me. I don't know, it's all new. So a big part of my creative process at the moment, and it's actually informed like the setting up of the Patreon rewards and that, I kind of figured if I was taking these journeys to these sites to get to know these things, that it was something that I could share with people then, and so I can take pictures and video and write reports and do the research on the sites, as well as kind of integrating the personal gnosis then that I'm having. So like at least once a month I'm going out to find a new site, to visit a new site, which is great. But it's inspiring me to to go to more non-sacred sites as well. So I have been, like, when now he's on holidays now, but when I was dropping my son to school, I go for a walk on the beach first. So that was kind of the start of the day. Not every day, because Ireland rains a lot. I'm not able to say that I went every day, but I went, and it was I found that was a very refreshing feeling, and I mean, anybody who lives near a beach will kind of understand that, I guess. There's a whole thing about the air is different, and it's kind of like that feeling, after a rainstorm or something. There's something about ions in the air or something.
The ozone that it creates.
Yeah. So that definitely helps with the creativity. I think any kind of running water actually would do that for most people. You don't have to live beside the beach. But that's why if I didn't get out for a walk, then I would usually have a shower, or I would usually have a shower anyway. But it was particularly important to have a shower if I hadn't been out and kind of been near water, because it's a bit of an energy substitute, to at least stand under the shower and get yourself kind of clear and fresh. Try to stay off Facebook, because that can be such a time sink, especially first thing in the morning. If you go on when you're still in bed, it's like, oh no, I just 5 more minutes. So I actually find that quite difficult, because a lot of my work is actually on Facebook. So there's a justifiable kind of reason for me to be on Facebook. Like, a lot of So like a lot of the teaching and the networking that I would do, certainly a lot of the marketing and active participation in communities. Again, that's part of the service, but it's also about kind of figuring out what people want and what their pain points are, to use the marketing speak on it. So I have a lot of legitimate reasons to be on Facebook, and it's a big problem for me.
Fall into the hole of Facebook.
Exactly, and you kind of, you can't even have that, genuine kind of self-loathing of, oh, I've wasted so much time, because you have actually been working, but, like really strictly, you could have got that work done in a lot less time. So part of my process is Facebook discipline, every day.
Yeah, it's the same as with Pinterest. If I go on there and I look for reference images, and I find myself like 2 hours later still looking at recipes for something, I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. So I find that I have to, if I do go on Facebook in the morning, my Facebook is very busy, so I don't want to leave like messages and stuff like that unchecked. A lot of people contact me through my author page and my personal page actually as well, because that's pretty open. So I don't want to leave that through the whole day, and it'll often influence some of the work that I'm doing that day, if there's something I need to take care of. So I tend to set an alarm for that. go on for, allow myself maybe half an hour with a list of stuff to do, I have Wunderlist on my tablet and on my laptop. It's a free app. It's amazing. But it can, you can set reminders, and you can do like subtasks and everything. So like, I find that helps me kind of stay organized. So that kind of list making and organization process is also a big part of the day, because otherwise I will get lost in the creative stuff as well. I tend to be a little bit obsessive, I will admit, that's obviously reflected in the Facebook, but when I get my head set on something, I really, really dig into it, and really kind of get very focused on it and get very lost in it. So I find that, working in blocks and sessions and having a very kind of organized to-do list. So not just, for me, like not just the big things, of like, do marketing today or whatever. Like I would have to have that subdivided into exactly what I'm going to do for, how long. And, it can be flexible as well. I don't always stick to the list, but it just, I find if I do go off track, it helps to have that there to kind of pull myself back to. And, it's like, right, well, so instead of kind of realizing you're off track and floundering around and like then just feeling bad and, saying, fuck it, I've done 2 hours, I might as well do another hour and then I'll go and get lunch, you can actually go back to your list and pick something that will only take the hour that you have left before lunch or whatever. So I don't always, I'm mentioning lunch here like I have lunch every day. I don't have lunch every day. I mean, I should have lunch every day, but I don't. Again, that kind of self-care is something that I need to get better at. So making sure that I have breakfast, lunch and dinner every day. I know it sounds really basic, but, drinking enough water and, having all those kind of things organized and beside me is really important. I think a lot of creative people will relate to that, and I mean, not just like forgetting to eat or whatever, it could be that I think a lot of us kind of have these kind of obsessive almost personalities that, it's how we make good art. But it really helps for me anyway, like I said, to be very organized and to be very on track. So that's a huge part of my creative kind of process every day, is the organization side of things.
Yeah, I struggle with organization. It's one of my Achilles heels. Yeah. So I find myself sometimes just going, I don't know what I should be doing right now, and then I have to kind of think, what should I be doing right now? So that's one thing that I'm working on this year, is trying to get my lists made and keep to timetables and, start doing things with schedules rather than just going, what do I fancy doing today?
Yeah. And, it's hard when you've no boss looking over your shoulder as well. I mean, I love that. I really love that. And I love being able to, switch tacks and take up whatever project, I do feel like doing. But again, when you have that kind of structure sorted, it just really helps with that.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of creative people like, is that they're their own boss, they're the masters of their own destiny, and whether they succeed or they fail, it's their own kind of journey to take.
Yeah.
Just because we've been doing this for I think about half an hour now, so
Okay.
I'll tell you just one more question and then we'll wrap up, so it doesn't become like a massive 3-hour geek session about creativity. Do you have any advice that you would give to somebody who wants to be where you are now, but are just beginning to get on the path?
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that came to mind was get paid for your work, and stop working for free as soon as possible. I understand there's a whole host of reasons why people work for free. I really do understand that. Building your portfolio is a good thing, building your skills and experience, community volunteering, working on projects that are going to specifically expand your CV, working for exposure. If it's something that you've identified as a market that you need to be in, that's good. For example, I just recently did a guest blog on the Call of the Morrigan community forum on Facebook and on their blog. So I didn't get paid for that, but like their Facebook page has something like 2,500 people who are specifically there in, you know, in my kind of target market, if you like, you know,
Yeah.
people that I can help. So
Like
stuff like that
tribe.
makes exactly my tribe. Find your tribe. When people approach you and say, you know, will you work for free, but like it's great exposure, those are the
Mm.
ones that I'd like to plague. And quite honestly, like you're not doing yourself any favors, but you're also not doing anybody any favors. You know, you're doing your whole community a disservice, because if I'm there saying no because, you know, I'm taking this seriously and I respect myself and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
and Joe Blogs is over there and he's saying, oh yeah, well, like that would be great for me, and you know, and sure, maybe I'll get paid the next time, or
Yeah.
you know, then of course the person is just going to go over to Joe and say right, because they don't really care. If they cared about quality and professionalism, then they would be offering to pay you, you know, or
Yeah.
offering you something, you know, even if you can't pay, there should be something that's of actual value to the person, you know.
Yeah. Not the
Yeah,
exposure.
exactly, yeah. People die of exposure. That's my
Exactly.
favorite.
People die of exposure.
Yeah, that is my favorite response to those queries. Um, you know, and I've had editors of magazines who, you know, are telling me that I'm, yeah, I won't even go into it, but like, you know, I've had people approach me and expect me to take an ad in a magazine so that they will publish an article from me, you know, and it's like, no, I'm a professional writer, and this is what I do. This is my
I shouldn't
job.
have to
Just because
pay.
exactly, exactly. So really, like, and I know, like, again, I do understand. Like, I was not joking about 20 years of like imposter syndrome. I have struggled with this for a long time, um, but my attitude is just, you know, fake it to make it. If you don't believe it, just pretend you believe it, and just write an
Yes.
email, you know, and you know, what would, like, if I was a professional whatever, and you know, if you kind of put yourself in that headspace of like where you want to be in 20 years, say, but write the email as if you're there right now, you know, and it does help with yourself. And yeah, you might lose some gigs, but they're the gigs that are just going to be hassle and are going to be a waste of your time. And you know, and I know what it's like to look at an empty bank balance and say, well, maybe if I just take this, it'll get the work moving and all that. Stick to your guns on it, you know, and really, really build your self-respect. That would be my number one piece of advice on that.
Respect yourself.
Respect yourself, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here with me. And I know it's my first one, so it's probably a little bit shaky. But I thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invite. And I
Oh,
look
you're
forward
welcome. Let's see if I can get this thing up on YouTube.
to
I'll let you get to your lunch.
Yes, I should do lunch.
Because we shall do lunch today. And and thank you very much. I'll put links to your website and your course and your Patreon down in the description to the YouTube video so everyone can find you. And I shall undoubtedly speak to you very, very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.